Hey guys, what is happening? And welcome back to another episode of Discography Rewind with me, AnimetalViking. And today I am going to be reviewing and talking about the recent offering from Carnifex, which is the album Slow Death. This album was released back in, I believe, 2016. So, the year is now 2018. Still no news of a new album coming out yet, but apparently, according to Scott, the vocalist, maybe next year, 2019, there will be an album. I think the band's busy touring a lot and whatnot, so we won't see anything until next year. However, until then, let us dissect the album that we have in front of us, Slow Death. This album is the sixth album from the band, and Slow Death is without a doubt the band's best and greatest release to date, if you had to ask me personally, and many other Carnifex fans. The band have finally found their true sound, which is it's practically compatible with almost anything they wish to experiment with in future releases. So if the band wants to bring in an orchestra, if they maybe want to make the guitars or the keyboard elements have a bit more of an industrial vibe, they can. If they want to bring in possibly if they wanted to different styles of choral music, like maybe some more tribal stuff or some Gregorian chants or something of that variety, they can. Hell, if they want to ditch the dark Hornsian element together and maybe add a bit of jazz to it, it would probably work. It would probably still work. It's it's almost compatible with anything, if you had to ask me. Anyways, the album, it's not only brutal, but it's definitely the darkest their sound has ever been. It is also very atmospheric, and it almost feels like a concept album of sorts. Like every song feels like it's telling a bunch of stories that, although on the surface appear to be, not be connected, there is like an overarching narrative about them, an overarching theme or something like that. It definitely feels that way. It's like it feels like a concept album, even though it's not technically one, but it does feel like one. It feels like it's telling this very dark story, all about about death, about suicide, self-harm, all these very dark themes that Carnifex have been known to cover throughout their entire discography. That's definitely a plus in its favor. There's a lot more experimentation with tempo on this album. With some songs, like for example, like say Dark Heart Ceremony, it has a much slower tempo. It doesn't have any really fast parts to speak of, the tempo almost signifies that there's like an impending doom approaching to whoever is the protagonist or the narrator of the first track of the track, it's just brilliant. The fact that they are able to do fast but also bring it back a bit and slow things down now is very, very welcome, and definitely puts this album a cut above their breakthrough release, Die Without Hope, the previous album, if you had to ask me. The intros, the interludes, and the outros are definitely a lot more creative than what they have been on previous releases, and don't all sound the same. So instead of like the previous record where they'd mostly just abruptly end, you'll hear outros that that will either trick you into thinking the song is over before doing one last a breakdown or something, and then suddenly ending, or you'd have fade out endings or more instrumental endings. They didn't all feel the same. You know, it's and the same with the intros. It just the intros definitely, especially tracks like Dark Heart Ceremony, like the opening track literally opens with these ominous keyboard and piano elements, and then these violins just slowly building up in speed and in volume, creating, you know, this very creepy vibe to it. It's just fantastic. The album uses keyboards and even violence as an integral part of the songs, as opposed to them only being used in certain moments, you know. And they create a very ghastly, sinister, and otherworldly horror vibe and aesthetic to each track, and really add another layer of depth to what could have resulted in just another repeat of Die Without Hope. The guitar solos on this album are definitely their most memorable, a lot memorable than on the previous record. I know I said the guitar solos are memorable on the previous one, but here more so. Like, even now, I'm not listening to the record as I'm recording this and talking to you guys and dissecting this album. Like, I can still remember how the guitar solo for a track like Drown Me in Blood sounds like. They are very memorable. They again, not anything worthy of a top 100 list of the best guitar solos of all time. However, they are solid solos. They are memorable, they are solid, and they definitely carry a lot of weight with them on this record, and definitely showcase the band's improvements over the years of you know, doing what they do. Excuse me. Yeah, so the guitar solos, they're definitely some of the most memorable, and the guitar work as a whole definitely shows a lot more consistency and less flashiness. So unlike a lot of their previous records where they focused on being technical and whatnot, and just having these crazy wild transitions and whatnot, and trying to show off how fast they could play and stuff, there was these songs have a greater emphasis on having a consistent melody to them, and not being too flashy all the time. Like they doubled down on that, and I think it really helps this record in setting, as I say, that concept album vibe. Because concept albums, generally, when you listen to them, concept albums have a soundtrack vibe to them. They're not particularly flashy. I mean, yes, I know there have been pretty flashy concept album records, but usually, as a rule, when you listen to a concept album, there's no flashiness. The music is trying to paint a soundscape that fits, you know, a visual aesthetic, and that's pretty much what this does here. So yeah, each track definitely shows a stronger sense of consistency and has a great emphasis on melody, while using very, very subtle changes to the riffs to keep the songs from becoming boring and overly repetitive. A prime example of this would be songs like Drown Me in Blood, where the first verse, it has a typical a black metal riff, but then when the second verse comes in after the chorus is done the first time, they use a slightly djent inspired, like it's not full on djent, but it's djent inspired. They use a djent inspired riff mixed with a kind of mini breakdown before hitting back with the booming and bombastic chorus, because the chorus for Drown Me in Blood, it really is powerful. It just hits you after all the speed and you know, all the other elements in the song. It's just brilliant. The black metal elements of the songwriting are used to excellent effect on this record, with the tremolo picking often working as one with the breakdown, or one with an accompanying death metal riff, instead of just being used as a separate piece, serving as a build-up or filler for something else. Like, instead of having a death metal riff and then using some technical sweeping or something like that to transition to a completely black metal only riff, with tremolo picking, they'll literally take the tremolo picking. They'll one of the lead guitarists will do a tremolo picking black metal riff, and then have that as a overlaying melody to the death metal riff in the background, and it makes the death metal elements of this record sound so much all the more sinister, and it gives an element of rawness to it. It's just brilliant how the band decided to use that in the songwriting. The choruses on this album are just sheer brutality, and they are packed full of emotion, both from an instrumental point of view and a vocal point of view. You can really hear the anger, being channeled through in each part of the instruments during the choruses, and Scott's vocal delivery. The precision and the power in his voice. I will admit, his vocal delivery on this record isn't as great as it was on the previous one. Like, I feel that his his growls, not his black metal shrieks are still brilliant. It's his growls. His growls on this record, they are not bad. However, I think after years and years of doing the technique, I'd say in the incorrect fashion, it's kind of put a strain on his voice, and his growls, they don't feel as as deep and as guttural as they were on the previous record. But that doesn't mean they aren't good. It's just, you can tell his age. I know they're not old guys. I know this band aren't a bunch of old guys, but you can tell his age and his years of doing it in a kind of incorrect fashion have taken its toll on his vocal cords. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the future Scott sticks to just black metal vocals. So yeah. Anyways, the album is definitely a must listen for fans of not only deathcore but any fan of death metal, black metal, or black and death metal. The drumming on this album has an excellent flow to it, and is probably some of the best I have heard in the deathcore genre. Instead of it hitting us with only one tempo and a shit ton of blast beats, the drumming actually likes to play around and use a variety of speeds, time signatures, and various levels of either technicality or simplicity, and it really adds a more personal and human element to the songs, and it's just fantastic. It really is. It's something to really appreciate on this record. The instrumental track, "Life Fades to a Funeral," and this is something that fellow YouTuber Cover Killer Nation mentioned when he reviewed this record. The track "Life Fades to a Funeral," it kind of serves as a bridge between the track that precedes it. I can't talk today. The track that comes before it, which is Necrotoxic, and the one that follows afterwards, which is Countess of the Crescent Moon. The Life Fades to a Funeral, it sounds like the kind of acoustic work you'd found, the acoustic work you would find in an Opeth song. And I do have to agree with Cover Killer Nation when he says that if you listen to Necrotoxic, Life Fades to a Funeral, and Countess of the Crescent Moon on their own, if you take these three tracks and you don't listen to the rest of the record, if you take these three tracks and you listen to them on their own in succession, it really feels like a full story arc told in the form of a song. And it actually proves this part of the album actually proves that if these three tracks were mixed and written together as one song as opposed to three individual separate tracks, it would prove that Carnifex are actually capable at this point of doing some proggy kind of material, some Opeth style material. So it really just goes to show just how far this band have come over the years of doing what they do, and I couldn't agree with Cover Killer Nation more on this. It's something that I felt is especially with multiple re-listens to this album, I feel has been has only become more and more true the more and more I listen to it. And with all that being said, with everything being said, I am very curious as to what the band plan to do with their next album. Scott did tweet something about them considering adding a possible industrial vibe to the next album, but that remains to be seen. I personally hope that they will do one of two things. They will either stick with this sound and bring on some guest vocalists, because Carnifex have yet to do that. They haven't brought on any fellow deathcore vocalists. They haven't brought in vocalists from other genres, like maybe some vocalists from black metal, some vocalists from symphonic metal, some vocalists from death metal. This band, every album is just them. There's no guest vocal appearances, and I feel this band, with the sound that they have now, they could really benefit from some guest appearances now. Like, I'd love to hear Serigor from Karak Angren on the next album do some stuff with Scott. I would maybe like to hear Shagrath of Demuborgir. I would maybe like to hear, in terms of death metal, maybe Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse, or Nurgle from Behemoth, someone of that variety on there. And in terms of deathcore, maybe either one of the guys from their day, like from the first wave of deathcore. So maybe vocalists like Adam Warren of Oceano, or what was his name? I can't remember his name, but the guy who left Chelsea Grin, there's so many deathcore vocalists from the old days. Or if not from their time, maybe the new wave. Like, maybe they could bring on from the second wave, they could bring on guys like Alex Terrible of Stilted to Prevail, Ben Durr of Shadow of Intent, Dickie Allen of Infant Annihilator. It would really benefit and help them in some ways. And maybe if they want to bring on some more clean vocalists, especially from female fronted bands, like maybe Liv Christine from Leaves Eyes, or what's her name, Sharon Dinadel from Within Temptation, or maybe someone from a more obscure band. I don't know. I just think that with the sound they have now, they'd benefit from some vocal collaborations. Another thing I'd maybe like to see them do is have an orchestra along with a choir, because I really would like to hear what an album that is that Carnifex sound, this Carnifex sound, but with the same haunting elements, the same brooding, dark and horror elements that a band like Septic Flesh had been doing all this time. A Carnifex styled version of Septic Flesh would actually be really fucking cool to hear. That's just what I'd like to see anyways. However, we can only wait and see. So with that being said, this album is worthy of getting a 9.7 out of 10 for me. Like, there are some minor elements here and there that maybe could have been built upon, improved upon, and even this record, as near perfect as it is, could have benefited from some guest vocal appearances, even minor ones on just one or two tracks. But overall, this album is I've heard a lot of other Carnifex fans say this, and I have to agree. This album is Carnifex Master of Puppets in terms of musical quality. It's still fresh with each subsequent listen. Whenever I'm in the mood for some really dark music, this is the album I turn to. This is the album I hit the play button and I'm able to listen to it all the way through without ever getting bored. And it's just a fantastic record. I'd highly recommend it to people who are fans of black and death metal. You know, if you're a fan of a band like Behemoth or Belphegor or something like that. If you're just a black metal fan and you like bands like Bathory and Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, Karak Angren, Dark Throne, all that, and if you're a fan of deathcore, then but you want something that's, you know, got a lot more a lot more variety to it, then this is the album for you. Highly recommend it. It definitely is a masterpiece, and it should be in any fan of extreme metal's playlist. So yeah, guys, that concludes this review. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to take something from it, and yeah. What I want to know now, guys, is leave a comment in the comments box below. Please let me know what you think of this album. Is this your favorite Carnifex album, or isn't it? If you like the record, let me know why you like it. If you didn't like it, also let me know why. I'd like to know your thoughts. And also let me know what is your favorite Carnifex album of all time, and why do you like it. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the review, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Also be sure to check out my main channel as well. I have a video there that I did picking apart Carnifex music as a whole. I think the video is called What Separates Carnifex from Other Deathcore Bands. You can check that out as well. It's better edited, and it's not an audio vlog like this, so if you want to see better editing and all that, that's the place to go. If you want to follow me on social media, links on the description box, and if you'd like to help me improve the quality of my videos, then you can consider donating to my Patreon, which will also be linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and until the next episode of Discography Rewind, take care of yourselves, and as always, have a kick-ass day. Cheers!